Hey, it's Del Jackson. Another night, another Zoom. We got Andy and I probably want to say a lot tonight because we got Coach Charlie Fisher from Manheim Central. And I'm telling you, the guy's got more stories. And all we got to do is get the ball rolling a little bit. We got some news tonight from the LL. We're watching the NBA draft as we talk. So a lot of good things to talk about. So we'll introduce Coach Charlie Fisher. Coach, a lot of people know you, but let's just get a little bit of background about your coaching background and how you came to be at Manheim Central.
Okay. I grew up in the Reading area, Reading High grad, Red Knight. So I went to Lebanon Valley College. I got a job out of college at Manheim Central. I was their 8th grade coach for a year. Coach Sherwood came on, would have been my second year there. I was his 9th grade coach. And then I became his varsity assistant for a couple years, went over to Ephrata for 2 as the head coach. And then entering my 4th year back at Manheim Central.
All right. Well, that kind of gives me a little insight to how you are on the bench and your enthusiasm, because like I was a teacher for a while and they say student teachers kind of follow what their teacher does. And I'm thinking you and Coach Sherwood have a lot of things in common.
We do. So I met him, which it would have been 11 years ago now. And we spent a ton of time together, got to know each other. We grew a little closer on a personal level when we went through the whole thing with the passing of Devon Lee during the season. That brought us really close together. And that sort of ignited a friendship that has been tremendous. He's been my mentor. He's showed me a lot in regards to hoop and how to handle kids, and the handling the kid part is definitely the biggest thing that I could say I got from him. And then I was able to take personal experiences and then just being around him and the way he viewed the game, and he introduced me to Coach Gaffey, and that's where I get a lot of my philosophies, and we've had some great times. When I was his assistant, let's just say there was never a dull moment, whether we were yelling at our JV coach, Coach Quinn, or yelling at each other, or high-fiving or hugging, or two loud guys that are very passionate. It was never a dull moment. Let's just put it that way.
There's a lot of enthusiasm. I know, but share with everybody where Coach Sherwood is now in your job relationship. What is he doing?
Okay, so Coach Sherwood is the dean of students at the middle school, and he is he's the assistant athletic director. So him and I work together on a lot of different things, and lately with all the COVID stuff, I've been getting like my information from him in regards to how to handle open gyms and whatnot, but he's still my mentor in regards to basketball. So like the past 3, 4, 5 nights, I've been calling this guy, and we were playing phone tag, and I'm thinking he probably thinks I'm going to bug him about a COVID question that he can't answer, when all I wanted to do was ask him about this offense I want to run this season. And it was like, hey coach, this is not a COVID question. I got a basketball question.
That's great. Hey, one more follow-up. We borrowed him for a game for live stream last year. Did you listen to the call that he made on that half-court shot? I thought he was in the second deck at Lancaster Catholic. I thought he was going to jump out in the court and high-five the kid. I swear to God, it was the craziest thing.
It was great. We listened. Again, he coaches like he sounded on the thing. He probably did his little subtle fist pump too. But if he was jumping, he was only getting about a quarter of an inch off the ground. So
he was jumping all right. I was getting out of his way. He was jumping. I thought the headset was going to fly off, and I was worried about the camera equipment and everything. So
he's
good.
one of the few guys I can probably out jump.
Oh man, that's good. That's good. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Andy. Andy, go
Yeah,
ahead,
of
buddy.
course.
Fish, what's up, brother?
How's it going, Brackets?
I'm hanging in there. I wore the
Good.
sweater tonight for you and the boss. So what do you think? How's that going?
I love it. It looks great. I was thinking about that with no fans or minimal fans this year. I still got to wear the sweater.
I know. Well, I feel good. I feel like I should be going to get my Christmas picture taken at Sears or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
you definitely could pull it off.
All right. So first question for me off the jump. When's the earliest you've ever called a timeout? And have you ever called a timeout before tip? And follow up, can we confirm the rumor that Manheim Central does get more timeouts than the other team? Can we finally put that together?
So the earliest I ever called a timeout was, gosh, it was definitely my first year at Ephrata. And I feel like when we played at Cocalico, it was like the third game of the year. I'm pretty sure I burned a timeout in about 25 seconds. So that is 100% a Coach Gaffey thing, in the sense that if you have your timeouts, you use them. And it's one of those where I'm looking at it. I've been better. The longer I've coached, the slower the game has gotten. And you're better able to predict. You obviously can't predict a run, but you can sort of see a run but it's one of those things that sometimes I'm quick to it. And I'd say the last year or two, I probably would look at my assistants 3, 4, 5, 65 times and say, do we need a timeout? And sometimes they're like, go ahead. Or sometimes they'll yell, call a timeout. And I'm like, not yet. But to answer your question about more, I do think that after the first minute of the game, that timeout is null and void and we get a bonus timeout. So if I use that timeout in the first minute, I do think we get a bonus one late in the game.
That's good. I had to keep you honest. All right. So set the record straight. I've been telling everybody that you're returning anywhere from like 38 to about 74 kids on your varsity roster this year. So what's the actual number? What are you projecting to have on this year's team?
So we have, we lost one senior, JD. He was a role player for us last year. Great leader. Guys loved him. So outside of JD, we are returning seven of our rotation. So we have, our starting lineup is the same depending on who we go with. So we showed different starting lineups last year. So depending on who our 5 is, and that could change any given night, but our top 7 are returning from last year's team. If you look at the dynamic of our team, JV and varsity, it's almost identical. We lost a few guys. That's just sort of how it goes. And we got a couple guys that were on 9th grade a year ago, but we have 7 solid varsity, and our JV team looks almost identical with a couple guys there trying to get into that varsity rotation. It is fun.
I have a follow-up to that. So we've already established this is your second stint back at Central in some capacity. So you kind of know the lay of the land there and how things work. And there's not a black and white answer to this, I'm sure, but why, in your opinion, for a roster with so many numbers, why do you think you only had one senior when you had so many numbers on the actual team? I'm just naturally curious.
The way I don't know if this works this way everywhere. Now when I was at Ephrata, we did have years where you had less kids, but it always seems like there's that ebb and flow in regards to numbers at Manheim Central, where there for a while it was an every other year thing, where you had a lot of numbers, and then you didn't have a ton, and then you had a lot, and then you didn't have a ton. But more recently, since other than last year, we've been able to have it a little bit more consistent, in terms of not that big a drop off. In the case of that senior class, it was just one of those things. You had some guys leave to play other sports. I think the transition of power, some guys really enjoyed being around Coach Sherwood, and that sometimes stings when you have someone new coming in. And I'll be honest with you, when I came back to Manheim, yeah, guys look at you like you were still the assistant coach, and there's a huge difference between being the varsity assistant and the head coach, even though you're the same person. But I came in and I was tough on them, and I like my practices a certain way. And since that first year, I've definitely come back off the gas a little bit with that, because I got to know my guys, and we've been together now. This is year 4. I mean, at this point, it's all my team, and these are all my guys. And, but yeah, the JD year, I think it was a little bit everything. The other sports were very good. Last year was an extremely good year across the board for all of Manheim Central sports. And sometimes that if basketball is that third sport for some guys, it doesn't always take precedent. And it just was a perfect storm that we were just left with JD that last year. But if you're gonna have a senior, I was glad it was JD.
I'm trying to think how to ask this question best. So
Yeah,
anyone who knows you knows, obviously, your personality just pops. It's engaging. It's out front. It's, it's attractive. It's all those sorts of things. And then I contrast that with the places you've been with Central, Ephrata, back to Central. I mean, those are 2 places which honestly are pretty sleepy, right? I mean, there's just not a lot of attention, not a lot of talk that ever really comes out of there. Maybe this isn't even something you thought of before, but how does that kind of correlate with your own personality? Like, I mean, I know you can't rewrite narratives for things that you weren't there to have firsthand, involvement with, but I mean, do you like that fact where you guys are kind of out in your own little space, and if you continue on an upward trajectory for days, weeks, months, years, you'll kind of get the attention? Or would you rather prefer to be out front and be one of those teams, and we all know who we're talking about, where it's like you look at the Twitter feed and it's like, oh my God, Central's up by 2 with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter, something's wrong. I mean,
yeah.
Is that even something that's crossed your mind before with you and your actual program?
In terms of our program, like when I came back to Central, well, first off, when I went to Ephrata, I knew what I was applying, the program that I was applying to. I knew it was a program that just from asking around, they always had a turnout. They always had competitive junior high teams, and they were tough kids. And I thought that was a good fit for me in terms of my personality and going to that program. And I was very fortunate because I went into that Ephrata program, and I had some kids that could just flat out play. And then we were able to, they were able to understand the system that I thought was best for us. And we were able to build on that. And we had a quick turnaround, and it just so happened that in the year prior to us, that where we were going to see significant success, the Manheim Central job had opened up. And it was one of those where I was, my wife was pregnant and with our first kid, and I was teaching at Central, and I loved that place, and it was home, and it just felt right to go back. When I went back to Central, I knew what I was getting into. Taylor Funk was going to St. Joe's, and Chris Sherwood is the winningest coach in the history of the school. So I knew what we were getting into, and you also understand that when you're around success, when you're around a kid like Taylor Funk, there's a little bit of complacency with certain things. And I went in with the mindset, like, we are the underdog. We're going to go back to sort of being that Manheim Central, that hard nosed, that tough group. And it wasn't easy. It was rocky at times. And I'll tell you one thing, I got a handful of guys that are going to be seniors. And they were with me from day one as ninth graders, on the JV team. Guys like Cam Eberly, who is a monster, by the way. Cam Eberly and Wyatt Becker and Logan Scholl and Matt Segrist. Those guys were with me from day one. And this is year 4. And our relationship has not always been perfect, but I'll tell you this, and to answer your question more specifically, us being the underdog has gotten us to the point where we've gelled as a group, where we bought into hoop. And it's not every year that you can look and say all the guys have bought into basketball. And I can say here on November, whatever it is, that as a group, we have bought into basketball, and we bought into the role that we're not going to be as big as you. We're not going to be as strong as you, but we're going to play our game. We're going to be tough. And we're gonna approach it with a sense like, hey, you're gonna have to beat us for 32 minutes. And the last 3 years we've battled, and I think this is the point where we want to continue to be. We don't need to be out front. We're Manheim Central basketball. We are what we are. But with the players that we have, like I couldn't ask for a better situation going into year 4, considering we've been that average to slightly below average team the last 3 years, and we're in a good spot. And it's because the guys bought in, and they bought into something that they had to work really hard with. They had to work hard not only with themselves, but with the program, with the team, and their relationship with me. And I'm very happy with where we are, and I'm very happy with where Manheim Central basketball is.
Good stuff. I got more if you want to circle back, but I don't want to steal the spotlight, so I'll hand it over to the boss man.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about news from today.
Okay.
So today, LL voted. I'm thinking I'm understanding this. Is they're recommending a maximum of 17 games. They're saying that you could start whenever you can start. According to PIAA, which would be November 20th, I believe, was the kickoff date, if the teams are in school. Now, I'm connected with Penn Manor, and I know they're not in school, so they're not going to start practicing until later. So the first question I have is, how is this going to affect your schedule? Let's start there.
All right. So now I know about as much as you know. And it all came out from the meeting. Now, the league schedule the new league schedule has not been finalized, but I'll tell you just sort of where we were and what we're looking at. So you go down 17 games. So you go from 9 non-league to 4. You have to factor in a lot of your tip-offs, a lot of your holidays, your showcases. They're just not going to happen for legality sense. It's just a lot to deal with, other than your typical JV varsity setup. So the PIAA rule is 15 practices before your first competition. So the impression that I got was keep that Friday, the 20th start, because you're going to have some schools that are able to start then and get their 15 in sooner than other schools that are going to have to delay that start. So you're going to have some schools that are probably looking at being ready to play games, maybe that first weekend. That's probably going to be pushing it, but that week of the 13th or whatever it is. And then you're going to have some teams that are ready to play the following week. You'll have some teams that might not be ready to play until the break. And I think the mindset was, if we push league to January, it gives schools more time to sort of see what happens with this. I mean, it's every day's a mystery, and you just you have to just go with it at this point. And the league extended the date. The end of the season date has been extended because it was 4 or 5 games. I think it was 4. Don't hold me. That was 4 or 5 league games that were already scheduled before January 8th. So January 8th is that new start time. So there's 4 or 5 league games
Yes.
that need to be pushed
Yes.
later. And then you have to factor in time for possible, hey, we can't play because either one, the school shut down, the team's in quarantine, or whatever. In that sense, I'm getting the consensus, at least from my perspective, is our goal is to get those 13 league games in. And if we can get some non-leagues in, either before that time or mixed into that schedule, we'll take it. I mean, any games are great at this point, and we want to practice, we want to play, we want to compete, and the fact that the league is out in front of this and made a concrete decision is a credit to the administrators and whoever decided to make those decisions. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you're not everyone's going to agree, but you want to put yourself in, and the league wants to put themselves in a situation where we can compete in a season.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We didn't hear anything about the LLs, but from what we're getting bits and pieces, it looks like the LL guys are trying to get an LL championship, although it might be a little bit different. We're hoping to be there for year number 3. I mean,
Yeah.
that's we've tried some live streaming, and I don't know, what do you think of our quality, our product on the live stream?
Oh, it's been great. I love it. I love the announcing. I love the court shots. I love the games. I'll tell you, growing up in Berks County and just going to all different types of basketball and whatnot as a kid, the Lancaster Lebanon League is awesome. And it's just, I don't even know. It's just awesome. Like it's competitive. The LL League tournament is incredible. And the fact that like you have the Mid-Penn, the Mid-Penn, the big schools, incredible, big powerhouse programs. They go on, they do their thing in districts, states, whatever. The Mid-Penn tournament is just kind of there. And that's okay, because they know what's important to them. And I think before really getting ingrained in the LL, you thought district, states, that sort of was it. Like, I mean, a section title is a huge deal in the LL.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like you talk about that. You're like, we want to change a banner. We want to cut down a net. We want to get to the league tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they got to talk about what they're going to do to change the league tournament. But man, if they could keep that the same, that would make a lot of people happy. Even if the environment's different, because people will be watching it at home. And I understand with the time and the amount of games, but
we're gonna put it out to anybody that's watching tonight, that LL Hoops be glad to live stream any of the LL tournament, any. And I'm hoping we don't have to pay a lot of money for it, because nobody's gonna be there anyway.
Yeah, hopefully they give you the discount.
Well, they were good to us last year, and we did the boys and the girls, and we're trying to get. I'll tell you, even today I was working on trying to get some girls columns in. So we're working on that. If anybody's listening, then send us a DM and we'll go from there. I'll send it back to you. Yeah, I'll send it back to you, Andy.
All right. So we already talked about how this year is already wonky before it even started. It's going to get weird once it starts, because again, we have the virus. We have the other 4-letter curse word SNOW that we have to contend with. We're not going to be as fortunate as we were last year with that. That's going to factor into things. So, I mean, it almost seems sacrilegious to ask a coach this heading into a season that's here tomorrow, basically. But I mean, how are you approaching goals? Because the schedule that you have is not going to be the schedule that's really there. And like, I'm just thinking back on my own personal experience. We always said we wanted to play at the Giant Center in some way, shape, or form, whether it was leagues or districts or whatever. But that right there might be a goal that isn't even possible. It might not even be there. So how is something like that, how is that affected by this year of just the great unknown, really?
So So like you said, the playoff side of things is unknown. We don't know how many teams are going to make districts. We don't know what that's looking like. We don't know what the league tournament is. But what we do know is that we have practice at some point coming up, and we have our games. Now our thing is, we're going into a year where we have our team returning. And if I was going to sit here and tell you we're worried about game one and that's it, then I would be lying to you. We are obviously worried about whoever our first opponent is. And you can't get to the end without taking care of all the games up until that. We know that. But if we are assuming that 13 league games are going to happen, we are worried about getting competing for a section title. We want to have it that late in that year in that league slate that we are right there to win a section title, because we would love to be in a situation where we can change a number on a banner, and our guys have worked extremely hard for that. And no, I wouldn't say that on any other year. But this is one of those years where our guys know what the goal is and we know what the goal is. And there's teams in our section that have that exact same goal. And we can't worry about playoffs. We can't worry about end date. We can't worry about any of that stuff. One, because it's not guaranteed. And two, because you got to play regular season before you worry about any of that. But if that goal is in those 13 league games, then we need to put ourselves towards the back end of that slate where we're in a position where we could win a section title.
You already kind of talked about this, but this is kind of unique in the sense of your return to Central, where not only did you return so quickly from the place you just left, but you were, for your first stint, you were there for what was probably the greatest players, the greatest teams, the greatest games, the greatest moments, the greatest everything, right? So yep. When I started with the site, your guys' team in like 14 and 15 was like the first I really became a groupie of. Like, I followed you guys everywhere. And I would say the best moment in Manheim Central basketball would be that game against McCaskey, where number 15, who, I have to say this, I'm willing to die on this hill alone. I think he is the best player in school history. I just had to say that. I know I'm going to be alone there, but I had to make mention of that. But I mean,
he's a great guy. He's an awesome dude.
When he dunked on McCaskey, like, I mean, we know in the LL, that's an unspoken rule. You don't do that to McCaskey, much less Manheim Central doesn't do that to McCaskey. I mean, just walk me through that whole series of years, and then the Giant Center game and all that stuff, because I mean, that was really the highlight of Central basketball. It had to be.
100%. So my first year as a varsity assistant, we made it to districts in the playing game. We beat Wyomissing. We played number 1 seeded Susquehanna. You can figure out what happened there on the road. So great experience. The following year was sort of that question mark year. We ended up going 20-2. And we put ourselves in a position to really see what was going to happen in playoffs. We won a lot of close games. We played McCaskey then. That was the Thunder Dunk game. And I'll never forget Coach Sherwood saying, and I said this to my guys, both at Ephrata and at Manheim Central in some big games. He said to the players, he was like, look at this moment. And if you ever been to a Manheim Central basketball game on a Tuesday in an average year, you might get a handful of people that aren't parents there. I mean, it is what it is. And it's okay. We got a cool gym, and on Friday nights it's packed. Manheim Central loves Friday nights. But Sherwood, I'll never forget Coach Sherwood said to the guys, he was like, look at this crowd. Look at this moment. Like, you earn this. This is what you worked for. And when we went up like 18 or 20 or something. And Matt Walsh did that tomahawk, and then McCaskey slowly started chipping away.
Kobe scored every possession. He had like 30.
Kobe scored on a shot. To this day, I will have no idea how it went in. It like started at his shoelace. He flung it up and it goes in the basket. And it was one of those of how excited we were in the third quarter. And we're kind of like, oh my God. And as an assistant for Coach Sherwood, and my assistants know this for me, you're like, do I suggest something because I'm risking getting yelled at? Like, what do I do? And it was one of those where you just kind of like, all right, can we hang on? Can we hang on? We knew this was going to happen. This team's a real deal. Like we knew it was going to happen. And we ended up winning that game. And then we lost at Anvil to Lebanon, a really good Lebanon team that year. So that was fun. We go to rewind. When we won the section title, that was awesome. And then the second year when we won it, Coach Sherwood let me like cut down the net like the last guy. And I'm like, let's go, swinging it around. That game, I can't remember. One game we clinched on the road, came home and did it. And then one we clinched at home and did it then right away. I forget which was which, but they both were awesome. Then we go to the Giant Center and Tanner Brenice hits that shot against West York, which to this day, like you're talking about Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh saddled the guys up, put them on his back, and brought us back to that game that gave us an opportunity to hit that three. Played in the district final, got dunked on a couple times by Jones in the state playoffs. But great experience. And then the following year we went 21-1. We played at LVC. That to this day is as cool of a game as I've ever been a part of. At LVC, we played Cedar Crest at LVC. And Cedar Crest beat us there, but that to this day is one of the coolest games, probably the coolest game that I've been a part of. That the environment was awesome. The fans, the game. That's one of those games that like when you look back, you're like, man, I wish we had that one back. But yeah, it was awesome. And then we went on, we lost in the district semifinals to McDevitt. We won a state playoff game that year. That was cool. But looking back, I think we won 48, 49 games in 2 years. It was awesome. And at that point, I'm like, hey, let's go try it ourselves. And then when I go to Ephrata, like we were in total rebuild. We were fortunate to have Matt McGillen, who was able to help us battle through that year. We played in a lot of tough games. We only won 3 that year, but we were very competitive. I'll give you a good one from that year. And this is one, if people are gonna laugh at this, now that it's out, I don't care, but it is as funny of I see it, Coach. Let me tell this story real quick. We're running out of time. So it's my first game as a head coach, and then I'll leave everybody with this. So for you players out there that face adversity, or for anybody that faces adversity, just remember this story. So my coaching debut at Ephrata, I'm going against Manheim Central. So Ephrata here, we get a 22-point lead in the third quarter. We're up 22 against Manheim Central. Let's just say I used all my timeouts in the third quarter. The lead gets down to 8. Things turned. Lead gets down to 8. We end up losing the game. Okay, we lost the game. A 22-point lead to my mentor, old school, lost the game. But here's the best part of the story. Before the game, I crouched down to talk to the guys before the national anthem, split my pants. So in my coaching debut, I played with a seam down my pants, blew a 22-point lead, and lost the game. And here I am.
Here you are.
All day's work.
Hey, we're out of time. Can you believe it, Andy? I mean, I knew this would be the one that ran over. While you guys were talking, I'm clicking the upgrade and I need my credit card. And I'm like, I can't do it. We'll just have to get Coach Fisher back for another time. So, hey, thank you, Coach. Thanks, Andy.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I'll put it up tonight. Good luck with the season. And we hope
to
thank you, Jim, and do a live stream. Thank you.
Yep, see you. Thanks.
All right, good night.
Yep.